So we're going live here for our DDT 110 class, and was just going to use this session as a kickoff for talking about sort of how the class is going to be set up, and then also to have a chance to answer any questions. All right, so to get started, I'm going to take a look, share a file here, and look at our syllabus. So should be able to see our syllabus here in front of me. And hopefully everyone's had a chance to look at this. This class is an online asynchronous format. So it means that sessions like this are going to be optional for folks to join in. They're going to be a chance to get some more information, but we do not have a scheduled time that we'll do any of these meetings. Scrolling down, our syllabus shows us the textbook. My understanding is that textbook's now on back order with the bookstore so that you can place your order with the bookstore. They'll be shipping those out as soon as they receive, and I think there's a rush order happening with those. But because of that, I've also made sure and checked the first 3 modules that you'll be able to participate in those just using the links or supportive information that's in Blackboard. The textbook you may still find useful for those modules, but it shouldn't slow you down. All right, and a couple other things I just want to highlight here on our syllabus is we're going to be using a point scoring for the grades, and there's a breakdown of how that will happen for our course. So if you haven't seen that yet on the syllabus, that's useful to have to keep checking back. I have built that we have discussion boards for each of our modules and journals for each of our modules, but I've also allowed this feature that I'll be dropping the 2 lowest discussion boards and the 2 lowest journals. So that allows each of you some flexibility of how you want to approach that. If you want to save those dropped grades in case you have an emergency come up, and that way you won't stress if there's one week that you aren't able to get in work or get in your best work. Or you may want to use that to pace yourself so that there might be some weeks that you choose just to get the discussion forum done or just to get the journal done and not have it impact your final grade. Those are going to be built into how the Blackboard will be the grade book will be crunching your grades. So you'll be able to see that once we get going, it'll start calculating with having the lowest ones dropped. So it'll be actually over a couple weeks till you'll be able to see a running total happening for your final grade because of that feature. I also, in this course, have built in an opportunity for accepting late work. It's going to be important that you're following the deadlines and paying attention to each of the deadlines. But if you miss the deadline, what will be important will be to jump in and problem solve and get your work in as soon as possible. Let's see. Then the last pages of our module show all of our due dates. So you can see that we work with 2 exams. We have a project that I'll talk a bit more here in a moment, and we have 13 modules, each with a journal and a discussion board. The due dates are on Tuesdays, and it's Tuesdays at 11:59. So when it's no longer Tuesday, then they would be considered late. All right, so what I'm going to shift to let's see. Okay, so probably can see me again, and I am going to shift to looking at our screen together. So what should be happening is you're moving in, and maybe let me get this going right. Yep, there we got the infinity screen going, and I'm going to go over to our Blackboard shell and looking at developmental disabilities. So let me check in Okay, Marika, are you able to see my screen now?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, great, great. So we're looking at the screen. As most of our Foresight Tech online courses will have a similar menu here over at the left. We have the Start Here button. That's an important place if you haven't gotten rolling with the class to begin with the Start Here button. Scroll down on our task there and make sure you do the course entry assignment. That has to be in by, I believe it's tomorrow, so you can continue to stay enrolled in our class. The second button as we go down is where our syllabus is. So there's a copy for you of what we reviewed here just a moment and earlier. And then as you scroll down, there's also the part that is the universal policies for the college, the policies that are same for every class you're taking. I'm going to put this in a student view. Yep, so there's the menu as you're seeing it. The coursework button we're going to come back to in just a moment. Going on down, campus resources, a quick link to some of the support resources you have with our college, where you can always find our announcements, and I have those sent out to your email also. There's a link here for myself, and I'm just going to point out I've also included in there a link for my virtual office hours and a link to a phone number where you can reach me. This semester I am working remotely, so I'm not going in consistently to my campus office, but I still have office hours on Monday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays from 1 to 3 and Wednesdays from noon to 1. And during those hours, you can find me here at this virtual office hours. You can also reach me here on this phone. So there's a quick place you can find me and all my contact information. Other links over here on the left that are going to be helpful, maybe discussion board link. You'll also can go at that through each of our modules, but that can be a quick way to jump in with our discussion board. And you can find a link for grades. All right, I'm going to pull up here and look under coursework so we can talk about our next assignments coming up. Module 1 is going to be due on Tuesday, and that includes just the Module 1 discussion board. And I'm going to jump in here in just a moment and answer some of those questions. Module 2 is when we start using our content, and it includes a journal assignment and a discussion board assignment. I've made a note here that if you are struggling to get a copy of the textbook, that you can still progress. And when you open up the module, you'll use this folder here for links and documents. So you'll click here for the assignments, and you'll find there that I recommend Chapter 1 along with the links and documents, but I've checked in and added a few more items so that you can get by without reading the textbook to complete both of those assignments. We'll go back here and you can see in addition to Module 1 and Module 2, Module 3 is open and Module 4 is open. So we already have our first 4 modules for anyone who wants to work ahead. All right, going to exit the student view so you'll see a few more links here, and I'm going to pull up a tool and discuss about our rubrics. All right. What I'm showing now in your screen is how I'll be grading the discussion board. And there's a couple things that might look a little bit differently here. The first row may be what's showing up, that I am going to be giving 5 points if you started working on the discussion board within the first 2 days of the module opening up. So that may be something to pay attention to, that you'll want to get started always on the discussion boards or maybe even working ahead sometimes are the discussion boards. You'll still get points for beginning later, but there'll be less points. And then there's no points if you participated after the module had ended. There are 10 points for your initial post, and you can see as you look along here how I'm spacing out those points. And then there's 10 points if you responded to at least 2 classmates and your responses were thoughtful, polite, and stimulating conversation. 8 points if you responded to 2 classmates, but maybe they were short or didn't show depth. And then you can see how I move on down with that. But wanted to make sure you could see with that how I'm going to be grading on our discussion boards. I'm going to open also so you can see what I'll be doing with our journals. I'm going to be looking about following the directions, so important to read each of the questions for our journals. I'm going to be looking that you applied content from the learning of that module. And then on spelling and errors. And as I can see here, I've got to make a correction on this journal because the points is not following accurately. This column here is going to be deleted. So I will come back and I will make an announcement when that one's updated. All right. So let's shift and I'm going to look at some of your questions from the discussion board. This week, our discussion forum for Module 1 was to read the syllabus and ask some questions. And we'll start looking at those and I'll start giving you some answers with those. So I'm going to start with Daniel's question. He asked about when new work will be posted. So he's looking, I work a lot and try my best to get ahead. Is there a specific time when new modules will be available? I think this is going to be a common question for us in this forum. As you can see right now, I have modules open all the way to the middle of September. So it was with about a month ahead. I'll be opening up some additional ones as we go forward in the next couple weeks, and you'll have about a month ahead always to keep working on the modules. All right, let's look at our next question. Megan asked about what types of disabilities we're going to focus on, and with the individuals who've been through a traumatic event or were they born with that disability or both, and will we learn about coping strategies for people on bad days? We will look at a spectrum of developmental disabilities. So we'll find out that these will be disabilities that occur before someone has reached the age of 22. So for someone before the age of 22 who has a traumatic event, say has a brain injury occur during that time period, that would be considered a developmental disability. But if they had that injury occur after they were 22, then that would be a different type of disability because it would be after the time of development. We'll be building in as part of our modules, looking at strategies that how we as professionals will be supporting different individuals. So that will be also incorporated, Megan, in how we approach some of these topics. All right, Michelle asks, is there any way that we can do modules ahead of time? Absolutely. So we've got 4 of them open right now, and I'll be opening up more as we move along, and you can begin working on those before the scheduled time. Marika asks again about working ahead on assignments. I thought that might be a theme for our group today. And about being an assigned advisor, or do we keep the one we have? Advisors are assigned by our provost office, and they're based on the program of study that you indicate that you're working on, and they are updated often at the beginning of the semester And so if you've begun and already have been assigned as a human services student, you're probably sticking with the same advisor. But there's been some times that that's adjusted just in case one of our faculty has a really heavy load happening. So you can find out who your assigned advisor is by going in My Foresight Tech. You also are welcome to continue to work with myself or another one of our human services faculty. All right, Amanda asks, what kind of disabilities are we going to be learning about? And we'll be opening one module at a time. So again, that theme, we're going to have more than one module open at a time. You'll be responsible to know the deadline so you're not missing a deadline. And the kinds of disabilities, I'm going to go ahead and go over here to coursework and let you see some of the modules that we haven't opened up yet. So you can see the titles of these. In Module 4, we're going to start looking at some different conditions. Then we're going to drill into some specific ones. We're going to look at Down syndrome and Fragile X. We're going to look at autism and the autism spectrum. We're going to look also at cerebral palsy and epilepsy. And then as we go further, we're going to look at how we might provide supports for persons. So you see things like services and supports, person-centered, positive behaviors, and then we'll look across the lifespan with some of those other titles. You may see that not every type of developmental disability is listed there. That's because we will also include this project. And this will be opening up in a couple weeks for you to start planning for. But I'll give you a sneak peek here. Your project, you are going to have options. So you can decide that what you would most like to learn more about are some agencies. So you may look at option A. Or you may find that you'd more like to look at advocacy and policies. So you might like option B more. Or you might find that there's a condition that we didn't go into further in depth and you'd like to. So you use option C and look further at a specific condition. D has you looking more at how services and disabilities may impact a family or professionals. And then option E is a chance to do some observation or participating in a specific program. You're only going to choose one of those options. We'll be looking at this again in a couple weeks. And then in October, you're going to build your plan for finishing your project. And then you'll complete your final project in November. So that was just a sneak peek to give you an idea of some of the topics that you might be able to personally choose to go more in depth. All right, so going back to our discussion board and looking at the questions thus far. We had that question from Amanda, so we're going to check in with what Linda's question is about. Are we discussing specific disabilities or theories behind the disabilities? And we're going to discuss ways to handle individuals with specific disabilities. Yes. So we already looked over some of the titles of those upcoming modules, and then we're going to have opportunity for you to go in depth on a specific topic, depending on what you choose for your project. As we get to the middle part of the semester, we'll be looking at how professionals work with individuals with specific disabilities. All right, and Amanda asks, are we going to have a project for this class? And yes, where we can find that information. So you'll have that sneak peek that I just gave you, and then in a couple weeks, I'm going to go more in depth, do a help session like this, and you'll be able to start diving in on that project. Starla asks about learning about advocacy movements and legislation and human rights. We will look at that a bit as related to history of working with persons with developmental disabilities. And then if you'd like, you can go further in depth and choose that as a topic for your project. And then it looks like our last question that we have are, well, maybe this is our last one. Question about someone working full time, whether they'll be able to work ahead. And yes, we're going to be able to do that. And then looking at, will we talk about disabilities throughout the lifespan? And yes, we're going to be looking at disabilities, it's how they impact childhood, adulthood, and later older adults. We're also going to look at some specific disabilities, and we'll be talking about things as they relate to behaviors. And we have a specific module looking specifically at how we'll support positive behaviors. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and come on back to our Blackboard Collaborate and check in if that raised any questions. So, Marika, does that bring up any questions that you'd like clarified any further?
No, I think everybody put the coursework questions because at the beginning there wasn't anything up there but the first one, and that's
Okay.
why everybody kept asking the
Oh,
same
that's good.
question.
That's good to know. So we got, yeah. So I often left just the first module because we want to zero in about the making sure the course entry assignment's done, and then we had the issue that some students were telling me about the textbook. So I also wanted to make sure I had a chance to check all the links and documents. But we're well set now that you can dive in for the first month. So great. Anything else that would be helpful at this point?
No.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you were able to join and be able to hear this all live. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, and this will be available for anyone to check back on.